Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Jewel Exchange with Spit Gems. Today we have hip hop royalty in the building. Author, journalist, MC, educator, and hip hop historian. This man has written over 300 articles for every publication in the field, from Double XL to Vibe to The Source and a plethora of others. A 25-year strong career and still rocking, still growing and developing. This man is an absolute pioneer and a pillar to authentic hip hop culture. Ladies and gentlemen, the Skillastrator Lo, better known as the God Sunez Allah.
Oh man, peace, peace. I'm not used to
Peace,
getting
brother,
the
peace.
intro. Yeah, man, it's thank you so much, man. I'm
Nah,
just
thank
trying to
you for
do
taking the
everything.
time, man. That's really what
Yeah,
matters, man.
yeah, absolutely. I just try to do everything with fury and take every opportunity. A lot of the reasoning behind me having such a long career is because I'm a late bloomer. It sounds weird, but I'm a late bloomer. So when I didn't do anything in the street. I played basketball as a kid. I didn't really do anything in the street. I had good grades. People looked out for me. So I was the kid that they told you should go home now because they're gonna do something and we need you to be good. I'm that kid. I'm that kid. So when it was time for me to do something in the street, I already knew what to do. I knew what to do. I wanted to get knowledge. I wanted to get hip hop. I wanted to document this. I wanted to learn my culture because I come from a Puerto Rican background that's very assimilated. So we didn't learn salsa. We didn't learn anything. So I go to Spanish Harlem and I spent hours with OGs learning about the music and stuff. So these
Sunset
places,
Park,
yeah, Sunset Park is where I'm from. Yeah, Sunset Park.
super Puerto Rican, but like
Yeah,
super, also known as Gunset Park.
Gunset. Right, right. And to show funny, the one of the worst blocks was 49th Street. They called Gunset Terrace because it was called Sunset Terrace. So it was Gunset Terrace. That's the block that really got that name. And then it
Mm,
spread out to all the worst blocks. To show you the disparity, I'm from 48th Street, and it's almost like another world I was in. I was almost in
okay,
another
just a
world,
block away.
Yeah, and as far as friends, I'm a twin brother. I have a twin. So I didn't need to go
Wow.
have friends. So I lived a very secluded life. I had my best friend. Why do I need to go outside? Why do I need to go see crack and all this kind of stuff that's going on everywhere? I got my best friend here. We doing what we doing. We're in our own world and everything. So when I start learning about hip hop, I spent a whole junior high school career, like my whole junior high school years, I did not listen to music. People think I was listening to music from birth or something, like the story of Jay Dilla, where he's like hearing things from the beginning as a baby. Nah, I didn't have an ear for music at all. All my father did was listen to doo-wop, and everything else was no good. Everything else was too black, too cocolo, salsa, none of that. So I just fell in love with like ballads.
Wow.
When the Motown ballads came on, like people know when they're around me though, they're like, wow, hey, he just plays soul music and ballads and jazz ballads and like I'm not hearing hip hop 24/7. And it was when I
Right.
was in high school that you come into your own and I hear low end theory and we start getting obsessive. We start making pause tapes. You know what I mean? We start making pause tapes, me and my brother, and we decide to actually use our money that we have very little of to not buy clothes and buy one album. Because if I buy an album and he buys a different one, we have two. That's a lot, right? And then we buy two every week. We have a
No
collection.
doubt.
So I get when we first hear the first three albums we bought, we call them the trilogy. Me and my brother, we go Low End Theory, Future Without a Past, Leaders of New School, and One for All, Brand Nubian. These are the first three albums we ever bought. We
Wow.
never heard another full length album ever. Even though other albums like Paid in Full, when I finally heard it in full length, I knew every song and could recite the whole thing.
Yeah,
But
you was hard body in that specific pocket right there.
yeah, so like
Yeah,
once I heard
that's a beautiful trilogy of albums right there, man.
yeah, and we picked good, right? We picked good, and Low End Theory was
Right.
the first real like musical and lyrical classic that blew me away. That there could actually be a piece of
That would be
music.
my favorite out of those three.
Same here. Same here. Over time, it's been, and of
Word.
course, though, as programming, the one for all was the most important as far as the programming. Because in the songs, Brand Poop is quoting the knowledge degree in the 1 to 10. Who's the maker, the owner, the cream of the
Right.
planet, father civilization. So he's doing all of these things, and they just stay in my head. But the journey to what I wanted to learn that I wasn't getting at home was through the music, and it was certain records like Brand Nubians, Everything and Everything is Everything. They had a Farrakhan skit, and Farrakhan was all talking about 5% who teach and teach to those who don't know it. But he said it so epically. I thought it was the greatest thing ever to do something like that, to go against all of humanity and teach something that is true. And these things stayed in my head.
Mm.
And then when I heard Wu-Tang Forever, which is my favorite hip hop album of all time, it's Wu-Tang Forever. And RZA said, and nothing
Wow.
compares to my queen and my seeds and 120 lessons. I'm sounding like a crazy man. And I'm going to my brother. I'm going, yo, I got to get the 120 lessons. That's all I need, because we can get the queen, we can get the seeds eventually. But what's the 120 lessons? That's what got me in this journey of hip hop, really. Because what better way to
And you
understand what
sought that
they're
out.
saying? Yeah, what better way to understand what they're saying though
Due
than
to the
verse?
music, you actively sought that knowledge out.
Right. And
That's amazing.
90 that's 1997, but 1994 I'm writing in my college paper, CUNY's Brew College, and because of the things I'm writing now, I get my own column. And I call it Sunset Style. And I have a guy design it like the Wild Style. And when he designs it, I start writing my own columns, and they become so fiery that people love it. But I'm thinking like, Gems, I don't have any hip hop collection. I have like 10 albums. I don't know enough. How dare I talk about hip hop music and stuff? So it's funny that I'm low life because I didn't steal any garments, but boy, man, Gems, I was stealing records like crazy. Every single cassette, every single CD. Now look at my frame. I couldn't steal vinyl though, because it looked crazy when I put it in there, right? But when I had stickers, I had price stickers to put when I went into Discorama, and I put price stickers, and I would buy 10 albums, be like $10. You know what I mean? And I put their own price stickers because I stole their role. You
Right,
know what I
right,
mean?
right.
I wanted to hear everything, and honestly, that has never left me. Instead of collecting vinyl or collecting things that look pretty as far as music goes, I'm obsessed with hearing everything. I need to hear everything. And this is why I became a journalist. I have to hear everything, you know? So even if I don't like it, I want to hear it so I can tell you why I don't like it and put it into words, why I don't like it. Or I got to hear this so I can tell you why that's better or why that's doing something differently. And this became the obsessions that got me into doing it. And in 1996 in the college, people from Vibe literally came into the college to look for me. And every magazine that you mentioned, I never gave a resume to. I was recruited on all of them. People found me and put me in there, you know? And at that time, I didn't think that I could make that a career. It was crazy. I couldn't tell my old earth, you know? I couldn't remember the perfection, my old earth. I couldn't tell my mother that I'm going to quit and be a hip hop journalist, though. They didn't even think hip hop was a real thing that's going to stay. So how could I do that? So eventually I just was a freelance writer for all these years, fighting and burning bridges in every magazine. That's why I have such a long list of magazines. It's about 10, 15 magazines that I've written for. But when I was at Vibe, I would say, listen, this guy is copying that guy's sample. This is a blatant commercial song. I would do stuff like that, and it would burn bridges. You know what I'm saying? I did it at Vibe. I would do the same thing. I remember Double XL. I say it straight up because they know what they did. They paid me, but then the first couple of paragraphs of a review came out in someone else's name. Vibe was the first to plagiarize me. Um, at times, Double XL wouldn't fix errors that they made. Like I remember little things. Like I remember when I did J Live. That's the God Justice, J Live. You know, had a lot of great work. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
And he was like, make sure that they don't say I'm a Muslim, you know, because we the gods, you know what I mean? And open up the issue. First thing it says, J Live the Muslim. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I go in there to fix it. Can you guys make a clarification? You know what I mean? Can you guys clarify it for the next issue? Nothing. So these are things that would happen so often. But most of it was really me not playing the politics, me disagreeing with albums. And it's as simple as this, Gems. Magazines, music magazines, if they have advertisements for an album, that means that album is good. It's that simple. You paid for an advertisement for an album, that means that reviews are going to be favorable.
Yeah.
And that's not how it worked. You know what I'm saying? That's not how it worked. That's how I wanted to be. And I was very idealistic. And I kept it that way. I kept it idealistic the way I wanted it to be. And so my career is very long, and people don't really know how long it is. I remember this, right? This is the main thing in the career, right?
A lot of people caught wind of you in this new renaissance of this second wind of your career, essentially.
Right. And it's when when I was in 1995, right? I wrote an article that I published only in the school paper I could get it in, and I said, if we as a journalist, though, this is me because I'm like, I don't do emceeing, DJing, graffiti, none of that. I tried everything at the time and it just wasn't working for me. I said I'm a journalist, though, but if I could write my journalistic pieces creatively, then I would be a creative element of hip hop. And I said the writer is going to be the element of hip hop. And I called it the fifth element of hip hop. I said that to all the guys that I was with, guys that are making six figures today. If I name them, on magazines that you know about today.
Right.
And eventually, a month after I did that, Blaze magazine comes out calling themselves the next element of hip hop. You know what I mean? And I knew people that were in there. So this kind of like subtle, undergirded jacking is stuff that went through my career. But every time I wrote a piece creatively, they would slice it off like it was frosting on a cake. You know what I'm saying? And so all my pieces always had to go through a conveyor belt of editors, and it would have none of my sound, none of the style I was trying to give, none of the
Essentially,
experimental
um,
stuff.
not letting you be the artist that you wanted to be, the
Right,
delivering
right.
was
And
wanted you to be just you know what I'm saying? Essentially just say good things about these projects we send to you.
about said album, and so what used to happen was I was inspired by Bones Malone. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt.
And Bones Malone, I only read two of his columns because after I read what he wrote, I was like, this is so dope. If I read more, I'll bite by accident.
No
And I
doubt.
stopped reading. And I said, I wish I had the freedom to just write whatever I want to say, like Bones. And that was always the goal, to just like be able to rip. But the add-on
What
that I had was,
what do you think the difference was? What enabled Bones to write, from his core and
oh,
get it off
I'll
and
tell you why. I'll tell you why. Unlike myself, Bones had a real street presence. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't just some person that was like, yo, I was more like, yo, read what I just wrote. You don't know nothing about me. Just read what the hell the shit says. Bones comes with a whole resume of doing everything, graffiti, the streets, the low lives, everything. And so this being an A&R in the early Def Jam, there's so much stuff that he did, you gotta leave him alone by the time he writes.
they
With me, I'm just like, yo, can you just
got already.
take the time to read this shit? It's really good. I didn't get that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get that. And I never talked about, when I used to write, I never injected like what poverty I came from or things like that, because it wasn't the exotic poverty. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the, hey, I was poor and then I decided to shoot up to get this meal or sell that to get this meal. It was more like, I'm going to learn how to fast until I get to the next meal. I'm going to learn how to work a little more to get the next meal. These things don't translate. So I didn't write about that. And
They don't
all these things.
translate because there's a fucking firewall preventing that message, from being delivered and
Absolutely.
about just that. You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah.
not that it
Yeah.
doesn't resonate. These are the unspoken. A lot of times, man, I feel like a lot of my people, man, a lot of my homeboys, close friends, were just like that growing up. You know what I'm saying? I was the one that their mothers and fathers and older brothers were saying, "Yo, stay." the fuck away from that kid. You know what I'm saying? And they were essentially good kids, but they were right there in the hood with me. You know what I'm saying? Going through all of the same other things. You know what I'm saying? Like lot of single parent homes and all that. But I'm just saying, like, I could relate to that a lot, and I feel like that story needs to be one that's more celebrated. You know, the kid that did
Sure,
turn to crime
sure.
immediately. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. You know, my old earth used to tell me, give me a chain of events that would happen if I dealt drugs. And I looked at the chain of events and look what happened to this person and that person, and I would feel terrible. So I was thinking of things in a chess mind way ahead, you know, and I'm grateful for that. But it also aided me in how I was doing things over time, you know. But what that I did then was the reason people know me now more is because I started to do my own publications. I tried to do my own print magazines. I did La Voix Revolt, the voice of revolt, right? I
Mm.
did Our Swords, Our Sacred Words magazine. I made these magazines. But when it finally hit digital, like the internet, and I made my own blogs, then I was able to have a free reign. And I was like, now I could show people what this writer element of hip hop is. I'll write about an album, give you all the technical details and analysis, but it's going to have a poem on it inspired by it. Inside, there'll be prose to make it beautiful. And a lot of people don't know it seems so original, but it's not because my main model was Amiri Baraka. It wasn't anybody in hip hop. So when I was reading Amiri Baraka, I was like, he's a guy, jazz man, made jazz albums, wrote creatively, wrote about the music, was instrumental there in all the movements. And I was like, I could do that. That's what I can be for this. Early models in hip hop were like Babito, you know what I mean? So we went to radio and I did college radio. You know, I tried to do all these things. But the real thing was like, I wanted people to really respect the way that I wrote about the music.
The penmanship.
Like it details it in a special way. And when I finally got with Kevlar 7, right? Bronze Nazar is his brother who passed away, remembered in perfection, my brother Kevlar. He was like, yo, we're doing Premier Hip Hop with this designer Paragon. And that's my brother Paragon. And we just need you to write. And they let me write whatever. And I start writing and said, let me get out there. And I'm writing all that I want to write. I'm slowly infusing the poetry and the prose. And there's an instance, and it really goes full circle to you, Gems, because I go to the Fuck the Radio release party.
Mm.
Right. And you remember that because it was your release party, right? For one of your great albums.
That was a great night.
Right? Yeah. And Broken Home is everywhere. Nems is there. Pre Bing Bong. AG the Coroner is there. Everybody's there. I just finished talking.
Shout out to my homie, Realm Reality at the time.
Right. Yeah. CF is there. Constant Flow. Right. And I just finished talking to Kai, you know, Brownsville Kai. I just finished talking to him because he read my review, right? And I'm one of the first people he talks to. And Rock Marciano's killing it, right? He comes out with, you know, the work that really blows him up, Reloaded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sean P is the central figure,
For sure.
right?
For sure.
He's the central figure, you know? And I have a theory. I tell this to Rim all the time, though. I really feel that people weren't wearing beards until Sean Price.
Ah.
You know, he made,
Might be.
you know, right?
No.
Think about it. After Sean P, then he was like, let me try this beard thing. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't the NBA first. It was Sean Price first, you know? He just made everything so dope. And then, of course, the lowlights, right? Showing a new way of dress because we know that the dress was going very feminine and very trans. Let's just keep it real. It was going trans where people aren't trans, but dressing trans.
Getting crazy. I had a ton of bars. For sure, I had a ton of bars going at what was happening with fashion at the time. You know, just my personal.
And you see,
shit.
and that's where like so many lines that I use today, like respect fake and all of these things that I say is because of those times. Because I saw people following things that they weren't really living. If you're gay and you're trans and you do that, that's peace. But you're not. and you're dressing this way. You know what I mean? Like you're not dressing in a way that represents what you are.
The intersocietal pressure of trying to get in the game, that little
Yeah.
of thought that happens, like, yo, what can I do to agree to the forces that be, to
Right.
cater to
Right.
them, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
that's style of dress comes from, I believe.
So I'm at this show and I'm enjoying it. And I don't know if you notice, like, the way I am at these shows. I try not to be on the stage. I want to see it the way a person watching it would watch it. And I'm shorter, so I try to get to the front and watch it like a observer. I don't want to be watching the back of Spit Gems doing a rhyme. You know what I mean? Or the side. I want to see it the way a person would experience it. And I don't want people to know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And
No doubt.
I'm talking to Napoleon the Legend is there, right? Another essential for me, right?
Napoleon,
And he's telling me literally his plan of what he intends to do. And yo, Gems, he did everything he said he was gonna do.
no doubt.
It was ridiculous.
No doubt. His
And I leave
work is
that,
crazy, man. And his work ethic
yeah.
and his contributions are crazy.
Um,
Shout out to Napoleon.
it's
Or
yeah. And so I'm leaving the show and I'm like, oh, this is the greatest show. I feel like I didn't even get to experience everything, talk to everybody. And I'm leaving the show and I'm like, yo, it's like a renaissance. And renaissance always stayed in my head because one of the MCs that was really peace with me that I used to build with and made me want to do something more in this and take my chances and not just quit was a Hellraiser. And I was supposed to really in-depth interview Hellraiser right before he got his aneurysm, the brain aneurysm. And I still build with him, but it always led me to realize, like, we got to do everything that we can, that we have talents for, and we can't let other people stop us. And I was like, he's the Renaissance child. You know what I mean? Hellraiser's the Renaissance child. And I said, yo, this is like a Renaissance. But I'm looking around and I'm the only journalist there. Now, Gems, when I go out there, I think there's a lot of things I do. I'm a martial artist, everything. But there's one thing I go out there and I know I walk like I'm the best at it is journalism.
no,
And so I left and I said, I'm the only one here that is journalizing all of this. It's an invisible renaissance. I'm the only one that sees it.
that's crazy.
And that's why I started to write It's Invisible Renaissance. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it came. That's how it came. You know?
That's illmatic, son. That is illmatic, right?
Yeah.
Glad I heard
Yeah.
right there.
You know?
Word up, man. Peace for that.
And I just started, yeah, and I just started to write with fury. Everybody that is great is going to be put on, and I'm going to write about this music like we're the ones that make it, and everybody else is a trend in it. Everything on the billboard, everything in the pop radio, everything that trends on Twitter, those are all the lower level pop trends and side things to what we do. We're the center point of it all.
Always looked at it like that, man. My whole entire journey, I always felt I just had this, coming from the school I come from, being born into hip hop, having parents who are thoroughly, you know what I mean, involved in elements of hip hop culture and
Mm,
elements of the street deeply, intertwined. It's
right.
always knew, like, yo, that's the bullshit right there. You know what I mean? Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
yo, thank you
But
for that
that's
though.
essentially my journey. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's essentially my journey, and everything else is the opportunities that come with it. Writing. People don't know that I've written hundreds and hundreds of articles that I don't get paid for. You know what I'm saying? That I don't get paid for all these podcasts I've done. You know what I
right,
mean? And
right,
it's not an ego thing to say that nearly every artist I've written about or covered has made more money by me speaking about them than I've made by talking about them. You know what I'm
right.
saying? And so, um, when all these other opportunities come to make money, like maybe not just write the articles, write your own books. Maybe when my brother King Kamal tells me, yo, if I throw you these beats, can you just actually rhyme? Don't talk on them, just rhyme on them.
Yo, let's
And
get
I just say,
get into this, man. Let's go right into this. So yes, when
please, yeah.
when was the moment, right? Like the moment. Was it a specific beat or was it, I know for years I have been telling you, you know what I'm saying, through our personal
Yeah,
conversations, yo, Sunez,
yeah,
penmanship.
yeah. I remember we were outside of Black Bear in Brooklyn, and you were like, "Yo, that piece that you wrote about Sean P, man, if you read that a certain way, that's bars right there." And I was like, "Word?" And a lot of people would say that, and they would say, "Look, I read your stuff like I read hip hop." And because there's a certain cadence, there's a certain flow that I get, even when I'm not rhyming in the paper, it just has that flow. It rolls, you know? And so
And it's
it
layered.
wasn't a beat. Yeah, it wasn't a beat, Gems. It was people throwing me things for skits and stuff. But when King Kamo's out of Chicago, he's my student. And then he was like, "Yo, you know, you could really rhyme." And I don't know if you heard King Kamo's music, but
I,
he's my most
I,
def. You know what I'm saying?
I've heard the
Yeah.
project, obviously, the Mantras project.
Yeah. He's my most def. He does so many flows, so many styles that I can't really copy him. He does too many things. He can sing. He does choruses, which to me is the hardest part of a song is the chorus for me. You know what I mean? And he sent me these beats though, but he was really guiding me and say he wasn't just sending a beat and say whatever. He was like, "Yo, this song I wrote my verse and it's about this topic. Why don't you write about this?" And what's funny is that my whole life, right? I'm a 5%er, but I'm a different type of 5%er. I teach at a law school, and a law school in Mecca is the first school of the nation, right? So for years in that school's history, I have the longest running class in that school's history. That's from when Allah the Father left Nation of Islam and founded it and got that school from Mayor John Lindsay. And I was taught not just to teach it in the street, but I was taught to represent the school. So it's a different type of representation. So if I start cursing, if I say foul stuff, if I start doing grimy stuff, it would look bad on the school, not just me. You know what I'm saying? And I never had a problem with that. I felt comfortable with that because that's not me anyway.
Right.
So then now the problem is he gives me a song and it's like this song's about like, failed relationships and stuff. And I'm like, "Damn, King, like the only really failed relationships I have is like my two baby mamas, which took 23 years of my life." So I'm like, "Damn, this is kind of intimate. I'm not used to this."
Right.
When I teach, when I lecture, I'm teaching things that are useful, but I don't really spill like the emotion. I spill the end result, how I got through things, but I don't really spill like the feelings of stuff. So I'm like, "Damn, King, the first song got to be the hardest one, the one that I don't even know how to do." You know what I mean? So we did that song, and after that, I just kind
Uh,
of loosened up.
all because of a woman.
Yeah, all because of a woman, and it was a hard song for me to do, that it was almost like rhyme spoken word. It came out like both kinds. And I just had to get it out. You know what I'm saying? And for the life of me, that beat, I could never find I never felt like I could find the pocket. It's crazy. I could never find the pocket for me. You know what I mean? And then we made mantras across the Medinas, and some songs I feel flowing. Other songs, I feel like I'm on the pocket. This is why I always use that word pocket swim when I talk about MCs, because sometimes in the beginning I'll be trying to rhyme on a beat and I'll feel like I'm just drowning in the waters and I can't find the flow. And I could feel me saying the words, but where it should be is in the waves that are all the way out there. You know what I mean? And so it felt like that in the beginning because this was very all new. Like it was all new, you know? Um, Making a song. Okay, where do I start? Making a reference track. How do I make a reference track if I don't even know where I should begin?
It's almost
You know what
like
I mean?
you're, very, very close. It seems like, your writing was free, completely free. You know what I'm saying? Now,
Yeah, yeah,
now it's in a cage, in a sense. It's in that rhythmatic cage, that metronome. You know what I'm saying? It
right,
has
right,
sense
yeah.
within.
See, so what happened, right? To show my element of hip hop as a writer, I got rid of word count. I got rid of structure. I got rid of everything and laid it all out there. There is no hindrance. I could talk about a song for 500 words if I felt like it. You know
No
what I'm
doubt.
saying? And then I'm doing a song and I'm like, I have this amount of space. He would tell me the times, like it's about 30 seconds you got here to fit in. And I got to fit it in there. It's got to be about this topic or somewhere near. And I'm like, wow, this is very constricting. And I have to find it. And I'm thinking, like Noam Chomsky says, like what gives language its beauty and its infinity is actually the rules of the language. You know what I'm saying?
Now,
And it's the same thing. And I just kept reminding myself about that. You know what I mean? And say, listen, these are the rules of it, though. Let me go into it. And you could see the progression. Mantras has different styles because that's what I felt on these beats. When I have True Cipher on the second album, on the Unlearn album, I feel more comfortable. And then by the third album, Burnt Silk and Blessed Beads, that builds, that's an album that was like pieces of songs we did occasionally because I was working on the solo album, my solo album. So it's just like experiments or focused songs like Remembered Imperfection and things like that. You know what I mean? So it's been a real journey,
but you ready for the next one?
Yeah, yeah. Um, the next one is the solo album. I did it already, and I called it the same title that I of my martial arts philosophy book, The Zen of Us. So it's basically Sunez backwards, The Zen of Us. And Gems, I wrote this book in 2005, but nobody would ever publish
Wow.
this. You know what I mean? And I never tried to have anybody publish it after because the ideas are so next level. As I was starting to teach at a law school for a few years and teaching so many people that I go from teaching like one or two people to about 50 to 100. And I start to make it like this is a martial reality that I live. I'm teaching people to survive out there mentally and physically. But my main weapon is my teaching ability that I develop. So I say, I'm reading The Art of War and I say, how, if you ever read Thomas Cleary's version of The Art of War, his translation, which I love Thomas Cleary's translations of ancient Chinese texts, his version, his text will have not just Sun Tzu's, but it'll have over the last 100, 200, 300 years, he'll have added commentaries that other military generals and military personnel have commented on those specific aphorisms that Sun Tzu wrote.
Wow.
So I'm reading this book and I'm like, yo, what if I write my own to each one of Sun Tzu's? So I took all 13 chapters and wrote my own aphorisms to them that are creative. They're about the mental mind state. They're about this because I feel like I went more mental because at the time I wasn't a fighter like that. But at the time I wrote it, I literally survived a near-death experience in the streets. And I knew it was because what I was taught.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't pretty, but I survived. And some of this jewelry that I'm wearing, I walked away with it. So it was a good showing. You know what I mean? After that, I was like, yo, because it's not the thickest chain, but I survived with it,
No doubt.
And I was like, yo, this is the book. And when I was making the first solo album, I was like, yo, that's what's important to me. Because Gems, people know when they meet me, they don't really know my stature. Like even when I met other martial artists, they always think I'm taller. You know what I mean? And I said, this martial art, the way I learned it was right and exact because I'm a 5'4" person, 130. That's my fighting weight, Gems. 150 is too heavy to move. 130 is perfect. And that weight needs me to be fast. It needs to be efficient. And I can't mess around. So I work so hard at it because it doesn't come easy like everything else. You know what I'm saying? So when I approach the hip hop music and doing the MCing, I approach it like the martial arts though. So some songs, I don't care. I'll give it like 30 takes. Try it again. I'll keep going to see if I get it the correct way. And I always assume they don't know because one thing I've been blessed with, Gems, is that throughout my life, because I think I've been a good listener. People see how many students I've had, but I've had great mentors throughout my life. In college, at a law school in Mecca, like almost everybody somebody could name, I learned from them. And also in the martial arts though. So when it comes to this, when I took King Kamal's mentorship, it was easy. I listen and don't assume I know anything, because I don't know anything, and I treat it like a whole new thing. Doesn't matter that I wrote hundreds of things about music. I'm on the other side of the table,
Absolutely.
you know?
That's
And I took it like that. And
why this
man, the album is, yeah, that album, man, I really think it came out wonderful. It expresses all my sentiments. And like the mentality I had when I wrote the Zen of Us book, when I finished the Zen of Us album, I said, if this was the only things that ever represented me ever outside of my children, I would be content with it. This would represent everything that Sunez Allah is about, you know?
that's
And so then I was content with it, you know?
beautiful. Y'all want to talk
Very
about
content.
one song though, man. On mantras. I believe it's called The Cycle of Trife.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Everybody
something
at my home
you
here.
said something,
Yo.
the blitz of an icon on the tape, right? And then you go on though. You go off on this one. This is probably my favorite joint on the project. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's one of my it's probably my favorite verse and the longest I ever rhymed up to that point. You know what I'm saying?
Only built
And
only built from a New York state of mind, not the empire rape of our kind.
yeah,
That's a
I'm gonna tell
bar
you
right
this as
there.
a journalist, right? There's a song that I have now that I'm working on a new album with True Cypher, right? And I love True Cypher. I gotta give him a
Shout out
shout
to
because
True Cipher.
those Dominicanos, though, if they like what you did, they keep giving you great beats. You know what I'm saying? And they just keep flooding me with so much great music, and it's a blessing. And
Very
they
talented.
when I did Cycle of Trife, right?
I only
Kings.
I think that I'm not sure how many people are in True Cipher. You know what I'm saying? I get different answers at different times from,
It's two. It's two.
you know what I'm saying? No doubt. They got some
Yeah, it's
like
two.
Mystery Phantom.
It's O and
Very
yeah, it's O and tones. But yo, when I did Cycle of Trife, King gave me his verse, right? I told you he's kind of walking me through it, right? He gives me the verse and the chorus. But he rhymes about a kid from the street that went down the wrong path, right? And I'm like, okay, I don't really tell those stories though. Because in my experience is taking the person that comes out of jail and is trying to repair himself, and then I teach him. This is my experience. So I'm like, what if I talk about the guy that hustled the streets, did it foul, and then blew up and never fell off. Never fell off. Everything he did that we think is wrong blew up for him. And honestly, in my case, because people know my journalism, since 1994 and then 1986, I have been critical of Diddy. And from 96 on, I've been critical of everything I thought was worth criticizing of Jay-Z. Everything.
yeah,
It's part of the reason I get blackballed,
definitely
and it's part of the reason.
for you and I for sure, man. Um, I take my
Yeah,
take on Jay. You know what I'm saying? I still have a high respect for the pen. You know what I'm saying? And for certain
absolutely. Yeah.
just certain albums, man, certain songs. And I know he gets a
Yeah.
lot of criticism for how much of his pen is his. I've heard crazy shit, but yeah, man, I know
Right.
you're speaking on
I'll tell you this, Gems.
cuts a lot more deeper
I think,
than the music.
yeah, I don't consider him a whack MC by any. I think if I said it positively, this term, greatest pop MC, if I said it positively, it would go to Busta Rhymes for me. If I say it negatively, it would go to Jay-Z. And that's how I see them both. You know,
Wow.
to me, my issues with Jay-Z are not with his skill sets. It's what he's done behind the scenes. Like I said, there's so much things that I've seen, Gems, that a journalist has no forum to write about. That's why you see all these people talk stuff later, because it's media. It's media that was letting these things go and doing that. So when I used to go into things and I said, listen, valid points, right? I say, listen, okay, I'm at Double XL, which I'm an idiot. I'm not clever politically. It's 1996. I'm at at the beginning of Double XL, I'm there, and they're inspired by Reasonable Doubt. They call it the grown man's album, and I'm in there because I'm a wild kid, I'm a woo head, and I'm like, that's a poor man's Cuban Links. These are the things that I would say that would burn bridges. I would say it's a poor man's Cuban Links. You know what I mean? And I would say, isn't it
That's a,
against the
that's a
principles
crazy
to
line, though. I ain't
sample?
gonna lie, poor man.
These are my takes that got me, you know, these are takes that got me into trouble. And I said that back then, but I was saying, listen, isn't it against the principles to sample the sample? So isn't Ain't No Nigga, that's a song that never should be made because they didn't sample the original, they sampled the sample. These are the things I would bring out and go, nah, but it's, and I get these excuses.
Definitely an
And
interesting take. It's definitely an interesting take.
yeah, so I'm like, yo, if we're analyzing, this pushes the realm. Just like in '94, I was saying, which I love, we all love this album, right? Mary J. Blige's My Life. I said, listen, that's another album that's going to ruin sampling. But everybody looked at me stupid. I said, it's going to ruin sampling because they're making it too easy. There's no loops. There's just loops, chops, and loops. There's no chops. There's only loops, and it's only looping stuff that's easy to dig for. It's going to fuck up hip
Find this
hop.
shit that's already compiled and organized, a
Yeah,
small section, and just
right.
looping it.
And no one's going to want to hear our words if they can hear somebody sing over more easier loops. But again, I'm a crazy spick in the room. I'm the spick in the room. So I'm fighting, trying to get in and represent a Puerto Rican experience that we do have. And then at the same time, I'm trying to represent a hardcore experience that I think is valid. And for me, because I'm very rigid, is the only one that's worthwhile. Your pop crossover is irrelevant to me. I don't care about any of that. So when I did the Cycle of Trife, I was like, yo, I'm gonna write about all this, you know what I mean? And that's why I said the blitz of the glitz of this gross respect fake, the blitz of an icon on a take, because I was there. I was there when people thought like, oh, he did a song, he did a remix with Dead Prez. He's really gonna be conscious and send the revolution. And we're all like, tick, 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 years go by. There's no revolution. I was covering it though when people are in right where Barclays was made, and people are losing their homes and picketing and trying to fight for their homes. But we're excited about Barclays, and they asked Jay-Z about gentrification, and he says, well, it's okay if things get a little bit more expensive. So these are things that bother me. These are the things that bother me. The ability to use your talents though and make a commercial song and a hardcore song and only use the commercial song. You know what I mean? To champion concepts, what I call rugged individualism. It's not the drug dealing and it's not this. It's the fact that you're saying that that's the approach to all economy. That's the approach that we should have in all fields, a ruthless, rugged individualism. You know what I mean? These are things that I was always against. So I said, I'm throwing it all in there. And that's why I said I was the era's shadow banned sage, because I would say stuff and people would, yeah, oh yeah, you're saying something true. But then all of a sudden, Gems, I don't get work. Or I get album reviews and I get assignments of albums that nobody, yeah. So I was like, yo, I'm going to put it all out there because there were so many things in it. Like when I said we got ethos for Bezos and principles for Bill Gates and criminals, we give them principle. They never showed us that they had principles. A lot of the things that Jay-Z did was a success of music that we had fun with, had some skills in it, but he didn't show us principles in the songs. He didn't tell us though, I decided to do this, and so this is why I'm here. There's no song like that he has. And behind the scenes, when he was running Def Jam, all that, I was watching all of this. And I was like, that's not the way you do that. He's hindering his career. And I have so many stories, and I was like, listen, I'm just going to let it all out in here. And hopefully he's more of a representation of what I think is the worst that could happen. You know what I mean? And
it's a scathing verse, man. You know what I mean? It's and like
yeah. You know,
I
and
caught it. I caught it
I was,
immediately upon my first listen. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh shit. Oh shit, he trying to get
you know
his
what's
head off
funny
with this.
is
Man.
that it's my first time making an album, and I feel I roasted Jay worse than anything Lamar or Drake had for each other. I don't give a
Get
shit.
about
You know what I
yo.
mean?
I
They were gossiping with each other. You know what
people
I mean?
you know,
They were
my whole
gossiping
thing
with
with
each other.
that is that for the last couple of months, you know what I'm saying, or whatever it's been a month, um it's perplexing, it's mind-boggling to me personally how so many I'm seeing so many MCs and so-called hip hop heads and people are in tune with the culture. They're actually having these debates, and you're talking about somebody who does not write their own material, somebody with a team of writers.
Right. Yeah.
When did we start discussing battles, ghost written battles? You know what I'm saying? Like this, that shit.
Right.
But I don't want to spend too much time on that shit though. For real though.
I
But,
I
but
I, I agree 100%.
I want to get to one more. So one more set of bars, man. You know what I'm saying? One more song actually that I think might be your hardest song, son, your best one. But before that though, I wanted to just tap in real quick and get your take on, like you said, coming from a Puerto Rican background and expressing yourself in the realms of truth, right? This term, I get a lot of slack for mentioning this, right? Because I have not a general opposition for anybody else's personal identification, but I oppose to the idea of me being lumped in to this this arbitrary category known as the Latin rapper. You know what I'm saying?
The Latin, yeah.
What is such
Yeah. It's you know, in today's day and time though, all everyone's list would be whacked because they're missing this whole era has so many great Puerto Rican, Dominican, Salvadoran. Like, let's say if we make a list now, right? People, if they even know stuff, they'll go gems. They won't mess it up. They'll get gems on it. But yo, one of the greatest albums I heard this year was from my man Magno Garcia. You know what I'm saying? And he's from El Salvador. And his lyricism is incredible. You know what I mean? And I'm like, there's so many Latino MCs, so-called Latino, because I don't subscribe to that though. I'm Boricua, I'm Afro-Indigenous, I'm the true and living God. That's how I see my understanding. I'm an original
And
man,
likewise,
you
now a
know?
lot of people take what I say, you know what I'm saying, and they get offended oftentimes. But I think it's due to a lack of knowledge. Obviously, you know what I'm saying. Most people in the countries that were deemed to be Latin American countries, most of those people, the majority population of those people, don't refer to themselves as Latinos. You know what I'm saying?
That
Because they have a
yeah,
closer understanding of a certain string of knowledge. And the other thing is in the 1550s, you know what I'm saying? The Catholic Church designated that, you know what I'm saying, as
mm,
those who speak languages descending from Latin. You know what I'm saying? So essentially, and then we're talking about conquest, right? And we're talking about we're talking about a lot of bloodshed, right? With this book in the air, right? This crucifix and this book in the air, and at the same time that people are being brutalized and destroyed essentially, they're also being told this is who you are now. You are going to
right.
identify yourself with your conquering, with the people who conquered you. We want you to be more in tune with that than in tune, with your actual ancestors.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that's so vital for people to get a grip on. You know what I mean?
yeah. You know, I think this, right? Um, when it comes to, let's just use the umbrella Latino and stuff like that. Hispanic is gross. It literally says Spanish in it, and we're not from Spain.
Hispanic.
And people have used Latinos, especially a lot of the college movements, like when I was in college and others, as a way of unifying us brown
No
people.
doubt.
But because of the oppression, the oppression of people is different everywhere. It's what when we deal with the knowledge, you say you have to swim. Everybody swims a different 9,000 miles. You know what I mean? And when it comes to the oppression that's people from Latin America, South America, the Caribbean, we have different forms of oppression. So it doesn't necessarily equate in the same way that the Black American was oppressed. So we're not identifying ourselves by shades so much, you know, and it becomes difficult. And here's a truth. Many of the Black Americans throughout the history didn't have to have the issues with the light skin as much because they were passing. If they were light enough to pass, they passed. And so there's generations that have passed that didn't have that lineage come down
Well,
like that.
Sunez, if I could just add on real quick, I feel like it's necessary to illustrate like people passed, but there seems to be, not seems to be, there certainly is a color grading spectrum. You know what I'm saying? So some people of
Oh,
certain
yeah. Oh, yeah.
they pass around, you know, at this point of the spectrum around people who are lighter or darker, right? But then they don't pass, you know what I'm saying, further down the spectrum, you know what I mean? They're looked at, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it
Yeah.
really is a difficult situation, you know what I mean? And this is why me personally, I've never in my life identified myself with any skin color or any hue or any type of colorism or anything like that.
Right.
My family, right? My family, my father being from Bayamon, you know what I'm saying? And then coming,
Right
you know
on.
what I'm saying?
Okay.
And my grandmother came from Naples, you know what I'm saying? From Italy, you know what I'm saying? And my family was just every shade from the light to the,
Absolutely. Right.
I'm saying,
Right.
and I knew that I was somewhere not on either extreme of that spectrum. You know what I'm saying? But I was
Exactly.
born
Exactly.
with a family like that. You know what I'm saying? And at the time,
Absolutely.
growing up,
You know, I think for,
no, just to add, you know, growing up as a kid, my family on the Italian side, nobody on that side gave me the knowledge of Southern Italy or gave me the knowledge or even had the knowledge per se at hand, at disposable to tell me, yo, you know, in the 1920s, you know what I'm saying? This is the whole
Mhm.
idea of Italians being white was voted upon. You know what I'm saying? That this is
Right.
not
Right.
real. You know what I'm saying? Like and at the same time, what I was blessed, my father at a young age, to be given the knowledge of my ancestry, the knowledge of my African roots, and the knowledge of my Taino.
Hmm.
You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So just to put that in there, man, like the whole colorism thing is, I feel like it's obviously the biggest, you know what I'm saying? It's the biggest fucking topic and problem, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
It's the biggest issue. It's what allows people to try to disown Puerto Ricans from their origins in hip hop. It's what allows people to separate each other. It's what allows so-called Latinos to separate from each other. You know what I'm saying? And it's a real big problem, the colorism. You know what I mean? That's why like I love what's that like if we're saying we're original, then we all original. We have Afro indigenous roots. This is what we live. You know what I'm saying? We could say we have Spaniard roots though, but what we are really living is in Afro indigenous roots. And if I get really technical, the Spaniard roots that we actually live
Let's
are Moorish roots.
let's go.
You know what I'm
Let's
saying? Because we
go.
don't really do anything that the Spaniards came with. String instruments all come from the Moors.
100
You know what I'm saying? The sciences, the arts, the mathematics that the Spaniards knew came from the
4,000
Moors. When they finally got
4,000
it,
Spanish words have their root, you know what I'm saying? And
right. So yeah, so it's a very unique thing. And I think as people become more aware, just like I said, Gems, you know, I spend my times teaching. So it's I always have confidence that people will become aware and then live out the reality once they are aware. I never fault anyone for not
no doubt,
knowing, you
no doubt.
know. So we just work on the ability to share that truth and give them the decision to make that. Now, if they make the decision to continue to be that, well, then you have to live in that, but you had your choice, though. You got all of the choices and not just the oppressor's choice, you
Right.
know? But other than that, though, like to me, Latino list of MCs or artists and stuff is good to see who's doing it for orgullo, you know, pride, things like that. But there are too many so-called Latin MCs, brown MCs, Boricua, Dominican, South American MCs that are too good that they need to be on this other
They
list.
need to not
They need to
subjugate
be on this
the
other list. You
limited
can't,
list.
yeah,
It's a grand disrespect. And let me say this too, because and this is why I'm so passionate about this, because the prevailing factor, the intrinsic element to MCing is the skill, right? The skill that you deliver a message, right? And that right there cannot be, it can't be relegated to a tone. It can't be relegated to a geographic realm. Now, I'm
right,
it just is, especially one that's arbitrary. If you're gonna use a list, right? Why are you using the
right,
arbitrary title? You know what I'm saying? That we know
right.
1970 person of Spanish origin census. You know what I'm saying? You know that the
Yeah,
Catholic Church had a hand
exactly.
in identifying this way. Why? And here's the greatest thing for it for me, right? Having come into this understanding in different stages of my life is moving out here to Arizona, especially, bro, is because I've had coworkers, right? And I've had colleagues, people around me that are natives, right? Indigenous, live on the reservation, you know what I mean? And when we have conversations about who's indigenous, they many times chuckle or have disparaging responses when I tell them, I'm
Really?
indigenous origin. You know what I'm saying? I'm Puerto Rican, which means you could talk about the Caribbean area, but you also have to know that those people came from the fucking Amazon basin. You know what I'm saying? Essentially. So this entire landmass was full of indigenous people. Um, and those are the people who built those fucking canoes, you know what I'm saying, and went archipelago
Mhm.
hopping, you know what I'm saying? Just because
Right,
we
right,
up
right.
over here and it's not recognized by a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? That Puerto Ricans are
Yeah,
indeed
right.
uh have indigenous lineage. You know what I'm saying? And that's why those lists, when you say Latin rapper, it's like, yo, what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? You lose me, man.
Yeah.
First of all,
And yo, it's usually done really whack. They have such whack people on it. You know what I mean? And you can't put, you can't put Spit Gems and then put some guy that did a show tune, don't put him next to Rico Suave. You know what I mean? Like
whatever list
it's not a list.
whatever list Nas is on, half a mil is on, you know what I'm saying? That's the list you gotta put, you know what
Ex-
I'm saying?
Right, right. And you know what's funny that issue that was something that Pun was talking about in the very limited interviews that he did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He said the same thing, I'm not a Latin rapper. Like you're gonna look at me as one of the best. And it's incorrect scholarship. It's incorrect historian. You're doing history wrong if you're looking at him like, yo, he's a great Puerto Rican rapper. You know what I mean?
Yeah, see, it's
It's
crazy because,
it's
and that's another thing I take disrespectful because Puerto Ricans are a part of the genesis of hip hop. There is no
right.
separation.
You know what's the thing where the list really messes up, right? They'll name somebody like Be Real, right? He only comes out in those kind of lists because Be Real doesn't get looked at as like one of the greatest MCs of all time, right? But if he's not one of the greatest MCs of all time, then he is probably one of the people that is never considered as a greatest MC of all time or in that list that actually has made classic albums, which means he would be one of the greatest overachievers ever in the history of music. You know what I'm saying? And he's never mentioned in things unless you make a Latino list, unless you make a greatest smoking MCs list. I don't want to see a list of smokers either and say, oh, Redman and Method Man. Like they should be in the list of
I'm not
performers.
into
You know
not
what I mean? They should be
trying to
in.
list myself either. Redman, I got dare you put Redman in a smokers. Redman is one of the
And this is where
greatest
you
of
see
all
them
time.
though. Like you see them in the list of guys that smoke. Oh, but like Be Real. And I'm like, these guys should be listed in a different
Yeah.
way. The list was a point to sell and to be able to have talking points in articles, make people open, and then what you really, really read is the accolades that are attached to them.
And
Now
then
the
it's
list come with no
vice.
accolades, they don't know anything about them.
There's an
Yeah,
element
it's in
of like
place of all the
no doubt, and
yeah, because
you're ultimately saying, you know, this list is subpar to the main list with everybody on it. Now these other lists are like,
Yeah,
they're over here. Yeah.
it's why like sometime a lot of times when I do it, I talk about the invisible Renaissance era separately. But then when you're reading my writing, I'm putting everyone in a context. So I'll describe you or a Napoleon or a Cobb, but I'll say, listen, these techniques here match up with the reality of any era. You know what I'm saying? Because if I go back in time and stole a Spit Gems demo and played it in 1996 on the corner in my boombox when I was at college, people say, yo, who the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? It's a fact. So if I do some time trip like that, it would actually work. And because there's a thing I say, nobody says this is a journalistic concept I have of point of contact. And there are many journalists that have no point of contact. They write about today, Gems, but they're around no MCs. They met nobody.
They have no
You know
reference
what I'm saying?
point,
They talk
not
to no one.
mentally, not
Yeah.
spiritually,
And
not.
they've never they never seen a live show. They've never gone to a show. Their reference is Twitter, where they talk. And I'm like, my point of contact, I was there for these records. So if I compare to the era, my point of contact begins in 1994. So my point of contact is long. I was there for all these records and know what the record was then and was now. You know what I'm saying? Like I saw somebody write Illmatic got accolades, but Illmatic wasn't uh really beloved back then when it came out. And I'm like, yo, it didn't sell like it would,
What?
but that shit was beloved.
What?
Where were you?
Instantly.
That shit
Instantly.
was playing everywhere. That shit was playing everywhere. And let me tell you something. Illmatic was the first album that I saw people that they say they wanted to be a hater. They go, I didn't know. I don't know what the big thing is about,
No,
but I'm
no.
gonna
But
listen
that's
to
all
it
thing
again.
though. You don't know because you probably are not capable of knowing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
possible, not
So
for you.
it's all these things. Yeah, it's all these things that the journalist doesn't have. You know what I'm saying? And listen, I know I have it. I know I have it. I know I was there. I know I've been there and I continue to be there. So if I make a comparison and I say stuff like this, I'll say I think Skangsta Rap Martyr as a performer is up there with anyone I've ever seen, or Frank or Frank Knight,
I would
who's
say,
mind
I
blowing
would
to me.
second that notion. Shout out to the homie, man. Son get busy on
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, those guys could perform in any era and they would dominate. You know what I'm saying? Because of their vibrancy, You know what I mean? And I'm like, but you had to be at the eras though. You know what I'm saying? You can't catch everybody, but you had to have caught enough people. You know what I'm
To
saying?
understand
You had to have
listening
caught,
to and what you're looking at. You know what I'm saying?
right, exactly. And they have no point of reference, and their point of contact is very recent,
Right.
very recent, and they have no collection. You know, like I said, listen, I wanted to be a great journalist though, and I said, listen, it's worth buying, using all my money, borrowing from everybody, dubbing, taping, recording all what was it, 4 hours of Stretch and Bobbito, recording all of it. It was worth to do all of this stuff. Rob
I got
tapes,
so many
steal. It was
tapes.
worth it to be the quality journalist,
I got
right?
bags of tapes. I got bags of
Right?
stretching Bob cassettes, man.
This and this was worth it. It was worth it.
Hell,
You know what I'm saying? For me, it was worth it because I was able to find my way of expression, and that's why it's such a beauty. It's such a beautiful thing to me. You know what I mean?
no doubt, no doubt.
It's
Well,
amazing.
we as a whole, man. Myself on behalf of Broken Home, undoubtedly, but hip hop as a whole. Thank you for all the work you've done and the extensive catalog of MC that you've covered, man. Almost a seemingly impossible task, man. Just when you pick one of the books up and you start to go through it, man, it's like, yo, this is a fucking mountain of work, man. Just absolutely incredible, bro. Yo, Sunez, man, you have dropped an enormous amount of jewelry, man, and I appreciate you greatly for that, brother. Word up, man. This is
Thank
this
you.
is
Thank you.
actually, a bit surreal, man, to just be the one interviewing you. You know what I'm saying? It was about almost going on maybe 14 years ago. You know what I'm saying? In that
Yeah, yeah.
barbershop out in Queens, Goblin City.
Goblin Barbershop.
And,
Yeah.
Goblin, who opened that shop up back in the days, man. But yeah, man, it's been quite the journey and a long road. A lot has changed for both of us over the years.
Indeed.
You have not stopped. You've only gotten iller, and the catalog has grown, man. Before we go though, bro, I wanted to ask you about the inscription.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Peace brings the cipher all its calm. The elders gave me all my alms. This my joint right here. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate this one, man. The penmanship on this one is high level, son. Talk to me about
Oh,
that
man.
part of the chorus right there.
Um, yeah, so I'll tell you about the whole chorus. This was the first song I did solo. So I was like, it has to be great. And I'm not saying I know that I did Inscription Part 2 on the new album, on the solo album, and it's better than this one. You know what I mean? But when I said so blare the Parliament alarm, when the gods and earths, we get together every month. So when Allah the Father left the nation of Islam to build with the young, that's when he started the nation, when he started to build with the young. And because he built so many, he had them do different things that black power groups weren't doing. He had them not have weapons. They had to take their flag off if they were doing something stupid in the street, which happened often, right? Um, and every month he would have them all meet up. And that was the parliament. So when I say so blare the parliament alarm, I'm talking to all the gods in the earth, like all the gods in the earth, right? Peace brings the cipher all its calm, because we were always taught that the peace is the absence of confusion. So if we get rid of confusion, then we have a state of peace. Doesn't mean we have a state of agreement. It means that we have a state of peace where we could build things.